Hello from sunny Arizona. I'm Jennifer Vanderbeek, and this is the May 21st episode of our Creative Week. How are you doing? As I said, I am in Arizona for the next couple of weeks, and I really love being back here. Now, my partner that I stay with while I'm here, he just moved recently, and so I am in a new place as well. The apartment he's renting now has a little bit more space, so I actually have a little space to work in instead of having to work in the bedroom while he's doing his work in the living room. We have a little bit more room to spread out, so that's kind of nice. But overall, I'm just happy to be here as usual, spending time with him, but also being out in the desert. Now, I want to make it very clear that I never imagined, as someone who grew up in the deep south, um, surrounded by all sorts of greenery and high humidity, I thought, oh my god, I could never in the desert, right? I was so wrong. It's been 5 years, overall 5 years of visiting out here. I do kind of feel like it's almost like a second home these days. After, I think this is my 12th visit out in 5 years, and of course it would have been more, but for COVID. There was a 1 year, 9 month gap of when, we weren't able to travel. Um, but yeah, I not only do I appreciate the low humidity, especially when it's summer, because while 114 is 114 and it's bloody hot, the lowered humidity does make it a little bit more bearable, but my skin actually likes it. Um, yeah, it's like sometimes the humidity is too much and my skin doesn't appreciate all that excess moisture in the air and stuff, and my skin clears up when I come out here. I also think might have something to do with the hard water because there's a lot of minerals in the water out here, whereas back home the water tends to be neutral to soft. Out here it's hard, and I think my skin appreciates that too, strangely enough. It kind of reminds me of those old books and movies, like where they'd say, oh, for your health you need to go to so and so and take the waters, hot springs or spas, or go to the coast so you get the fresh air instead of the clogged air of the industrial revolution cities and stuff like that, or whatever it is. And yeah, I think it's any place that you can go that's different from your own native space and native surroundings. Um, at least in some ways is going to be good for you. Now, it's not a universal thing. I was talking to someone out here who's just the dry air makes her eczema worse. And it's like, okay, so, obviously there's going to be exceptions to everything. But for me, this is what I find. But it's not even just that. It's not even the effect that the water and the humidity or lack thereof have on my person. But I don't know. I don't think I will ever get tired of seeing the mountains in the distance. Every time we go somewhere, no matter where we're going, like on the highways and interstates, or even the side streets, you can see the mountains in the distance, the Superstition Mountains, the Camelback. Um, they're gorgeous, and it's breathtaking to me, who grew up in a hilly area. I mean, we have hills, but they're small hills. um, but it's not the same. It's not the same. The first few trips I took out here, I especially, like the first trip I was out here, we went to the zoo, and I'm like, where's all the green? Where's all the green? But I'm out here, and now I have come to appreciate the beauty of the desert as it is, and also I'm able to see that, there are greens, there are flowers, there are things in bloom. A few trips ago, like sometime in the last year, I think, um, my partner mentioned that it's like, oh, well, we could check out, we could go to the farmer's market for that. And I'm like, you have farmer's markets here? Because my brain did not compute desert with farming. I have been disabused of this notion because there's plenty of farming going on. There are year-round farmers markets, and then there's like the Saturday farmers markets that, we might consider like the more typical farmers markets where like people come in, they bring in their stuff, they set up, they sell, and then they go back. And we go to both, and it's fabulous. I have a fabulous time. But anyway, enough about that. While that, oh, a little blank there. While while that is all wonderful, what does it have to do with creativity? Well, I'll tell you. There is actually something to that. I think the change of scenery is a good thing. I think having that change of scenery helps restart, kickstart, jumpstart my creative brain. And sometimes it's good to get out of our normal situation and surroundings so that we can have that little bump, that nudge we need to get going. So, a couple things. Of course, since I was traveling this week, not a ton of visible creativity happened, although I always have projects with me on the plane. And one of them is this cross stitch project. Whoops, let's get a better color on there. The color settings might not be perfect. But anyway, this is the same project I was working on in January. I didn't get very far. I was only out here for a week. I did not have as much time to work on it while I was here. And I was working on that Tunisian crochet project more. So yeah, that's what we did. But this is the Sun Tarot card pattern by Innocent Bones. And yeah, I was glad to, well, pick it back up. It was still in my travel backpack, my laptop backpack, and that I use as a carry-on, or well, a personal item on the plane. And so it was very easy to just pick up where I had left behind, especially since, I had it in my little folio here, my little folder, which this is not a fabulous sewing project of mine. I showed it to y'all last fall when I did it. This was the practice piece that I made out of just random fabrics that I had laying around because a friend had asked me to make one for her sister and had provided all the materials, and I wanted to make absolute certain that I knew what I was doing with the pattern and of the little pieces before I dove in and made hers. And so, I mean, I have mine, but it's imperfect, but it's workable. It works great. And in fact, last time I was flying, someone asked me about it in the airport while I was working, and they're like, "My daughter cross stitch. She would love something like that." And I'm like, "I can give you the name of the pattern and the designer, so you can you can do it yourself." And so that's always nice to be able to share something like that because it helps the designer. Hopefully that lady went and purchased the pattern and created it for her daughter or had someone make it for her. The other thing I'm working on, and I think I shared about this like in the last video or the last one of the last two, is that I'm working on a new knitting project, and it is based on this book, and I'll refresh in case I didn't show it, Building with Lace by there's a name on here. Anyway, it's the third book in the Building series, brought to you by Michelle Hunter. I knew there was something of Knit Pearl Hunter, published by Skacel Collection Incorporated. Anyway, and what it does is it's kind of like a lace sampler. It turns into this lovely, lovely shawl. And I don't know if it's going to pick up real well. But anyway, it's going to have 9 different lace patterns. And on the plane, I was able to complete the first lace pattern. So here it is. Ta-da! And she just calls this one Lace Basics. And then since I've been here, I was able to start on the second one, which you may be able to see. Of course, this is not blocked, so it's a little harder to see, but you can kind of see like the little 3, the V of the stitches there, right here. And then there's a little bobble, which is kind of a group stitch that kind of sticks up, kind of like a little half pom pom or something. And yeah, and these are just Japanese stitch or inspired stitches apparently. And it's funny. I have had this book for and the yarn for it for a while, but I was a little intimidated to try it. But over the course of working at the local yarn shop, both in projects that I chose to do and like some sample projects I did for the store. I think I was trying to say shop and store at the same time, and it came out funny. I actually got a lot more confident with my lace knitting skills, and so I'm not intimidated by this, at least not yet. About midway through the patterns, we go from lace knitting, which I think they explain it like this. Lace knitting is where the pattern stitches are on the right side or the front side of the work, and the back side or the wrong side of the work is just like a straight purl or whatever. Whereas knitted lace, and I might have these backwards, is incorporates like a pattern stitch on both sides. So when I get to that, that's going to be a little bit more tricky, but I've done some of that too. Maybe not well, but I've done it. And then this basic stitch that she has is the first one. These little things. This is very similar, not exact, but very similar to one of the stitches that I did in my Hercule Poirot Holidays shawl, which was one that I jumped in not realizing how difficult the stitch patterns would be. Because that one involved lace, it involved mosaic stitching, and yeah, I was just like, wow, what have I done? I just thought it looked cool, and I had the yarn for it, and it had a cool name. Uh, which maybe is not the smartest way to choose a pattern, but if you're game to just jump in and figure things out, it works. And it did. So yeah, this is very reminiscent of the pattern, one of the sections of lace in there that was supposed to like epitomize the houses, like the vacation houses, because again, it was Hercule Poirot on holiday, and so like the little chateaus or the row houses and stuff. So that was fun. Anyway, so that's what I've been working on here. Even with it being lace, there are ways to make it fun and simplify it a little bit by using like lots of markers and just being able to like keep the sections together so you can catch a mistake very quickly, and learning how to fix those mistakes too is part of the process of learning how to knit lace. But finally, the one thing I am most proud to say that I have worked on this week, as far as creativity goes, is that I have officially begun working on book 5 in the Eden Creek Cozy Mystery Series. Let's see, the day after I got into town, my partner was working, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Oh, wait, I'm going to do the thing that I always say laughingly that I'm going to do, which is that I treat these, or have in the past, I've treated these trips as writer's retreats. And it's funny because it is and it isn't. It's not like an official writer's retreat where, I'm getting together with other writers and we're like just zoned in and focused and, we're all working on our books. But I do use this time away from home and when you're home, when you're working from home or trying to do anything from home, really, there's all these multiples of distractions, and they're not all bad, but they are there. And while it's not like I'm in a hotel with no like household stuff around, I do still like cook dinner while I'm here. And since my partner just moved, I am helping him kind of organize things as he continues to unpack and trying to figure out how best he can use the space kind of deal. And that's all good and valid. But while they're working or they're doing their own thing, they're also really good at making sure I stay on task. So if I say, yeah, I really need to spend a couple of hours on the book every day or whatever, they're going to make sure I'm going to do it. They're not going to let me slide. But yeah, so while they worked, I spent about 4 hours. Now, That is not translated to word count. But what it did in this instance was it allowed me to sit down and start writing out some of the elements that I knew I'd been churning over and that I had decided on for the book, like what the main plot or the mystery was gonna be in a general sense, as well as what the subplots were gonna be, and looking ahead to the next couple of books because there's going to be some subsections within the 22 book arc. And yeah, I mean that's all important. And keeping that in mind is really key as I go forward so that I make sure I am like keeping that short distance in perspective. It also meant, because of the mystery in this book, that I had to do a little backtracking. I had to do a little history building. It may not be mentioned directly in the book, but I had to at least know, um, in some feasible way, how the town of Eden Creek grew and was founded, because it does relate to this story. Again, I'm not building out a whole huge history, but I am at least getting the framework, the skeleton of a history, so that it's plausible. I've read the quote, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember it exactly, but and I don't remember who said it either. But I have it somewhere. But the idea is that in reality doesn't have to real life doesn't have to be factual. There are people that lie. There are things that seem unbelievable. Or maybe that's it. Real life doesn't have to be believable, but fiction does. Because when something happens in real life, you're just like, yep, well, that happened. But when you're reading a book or watching a movie, you have to suspend disbelief to an extent, but there are some things that it can go too far. And if you haven't suspended disbelief enough, or as the author, you push beyond that, you really push that envelope without setting it up correctly, then you're going to take people out of the story. So that's why the pre-work is so important, and I'm so glad that I've started that. I'm kind of looking at the calendar because this book is set at the beginning of 2018. So we're still pre-COVID, but it does involve like real places. And so I have to make sure that I'm being at least top level conscious of, what that is. Because if I have a reader that, say, lived in New Orleans or went to Tulane University in 2018, where my main character works, if I get something way off, like, oh, the school year ended too early or too late, or spring break's the wrong week kind of thing, if I put something in there concrete, I need to make sure that I'm not going to pull someone out of the story. Now, I also tried not to do a lot of that, but like a couple books back when it dealt with football games, I wanted to make sure, like, if somebody was a Saints or LSU fan, that if I'm referencing a game or a game weekend and somebody who like knows these things is reading it on the off chance, and I say something wrong, they're going to pick up on that, and then I'm going to lose credibility as an author. It doesn't matter if it's detrimental to the story itself, but it's going to make, the reader think she didn't know what she's talking about. She didn't do her homework. She should have known. And so I try and check those things, even if I end up, downplaying it or not even mentioning it all. I still want to respect the fact that this is taking place in both real and imagined spaces. Anything that happens in Eden Creek, that's an imaginary space. That is a created space. But if it pertains to the greater world, then it has to click. It has to flow. And so that's what I spent. I guess it was Thursday morning doing. And then we spent a lot of time running around and shopping. I spent 4 hours in IKEA yesterday. You know how it goes. But now today, he's working. I am getting ready to do my Twitch stream. And yeah, so things are going good for me. I hope they're going well for you. We are getting into summer. Next weekend is Memorial Day weekend. So the official beginning of summer, the unofficial official beginning of summer. Um, and, and yeah, so we're getting into that summer season. And for some, that can be a busy time. If you have school age children, then you're going to very likely have them around more because they're not going to be in school. Once school lets out, then this can be an opportunity or it can be an obstacle. If you can come up with creative things to do that include them, fabulous, all the better, because then it's something awesome for you, for both, for all of you. But of course, if not, if your creativity depends on you having time alone, then it can be a bit of a hurdle. And so I wish for you the best possible opportunity, and that you're able to still make time for your own creativity, your own, feeding that, filling that creative well. And for those of us who don't have children, school age children, or find the summer with its long days and rising temperatures just difficult in general to kind of get up and get going, do what you can to kind of create a comfortable space for yourself. Again, while I'm here, yes, it's hot outside. We're not up in the upper or lower hundreds yet, but it's still, I have a new space to work in, and that helps. But it's still kind of warm, especially for me, who's not used to desert temperatures year round. So I have an extra fan set up in here in addition to the ceiling fan. I am making this space work for me, just like at home. I can turn up my fan, or I can move things around and make it work for me. Or maybe during the day, I use the daytime for more physical things, because I'm going to tell you, if I'm sitting quietly, like looking at my phone, or trying to do something quiet and calm, I'm going to nod off to sleep. But if I can get myself going, maybe it's by playing music, maybe it's by concentrating on physical things like unpacking or unpacking boxes, or doing laundry, or doing other physical things, and then waiting for nighttime or things to, calm down outside. Again, I'm a night owl, so I prefer to work when it's dark. Then I can save that creative time. But sometimes you just got to do what you do. Find what works for you, and don't neglect the creative side of yourself for the next few months. At any rate, I will be back next week with another update. Hopefully, more to show on both the lace shawl and or stole, and more reports of progress on book 5, and yeah, and maybe even some art to show. I don't know. All right. Have a great one, and I'll see you next week. Bye.